Hi everybody, welcome to episode 3 of my Moving to Korea series. Please check out episode 1 and episode 2 before you watch this one. Episode 3 was supposed to be more of me talking about my arrival into Korea, but then one of my videos got corrupted. It's like a 12-minute video and I'm pretty upset about it, but here we are. It's okay, we are making another one because you know what? I think I can make a better one with more information. Hopefully you can't hear in the background because I'm going to put some music, but if you do hear some weird sounds, it's because I am doing my laundry. You know what's funny? When I watch other people's YouTube videos, I don't really care about background noise, especially if you can figure out what it is. So like for example, you probably are gonna tell that it's laundry, but I don't know, I just feel like the need to tell you guys. Okay, so this video is going to be a breakdown of what you should be looking for when you're looking for jobs on Dave's ESL Cafe. In case you don't know what this series is about, it's about me moving to South Korea to be an English teacher at a hogwan, and I talk about the EPIC program, which is another route that you can go, in episode 1. And so yeah, because my footage got corrupted, I'm going to be talking about the middle part of it. So get yourself a pen and a paper, get something to drink. I'm drinking water. Stay hydrated, my friends. So let's get into it. Information about what a hogwan is. So in Korea, there actually isn't like a kindergarten, preschool type of education system here in elementary schools. So elementary school starts in grade 1, and so the preschool and kindergarten education is kind of up to the parents. What do you want to put your kid in? Do you want to put them in just a Korean speaking school, which they can learn basic things to prepare them for elementary, grade 1 and grade 2, or do you want to put them in a hagwon, which teaches them English? And a lot of people put their kids in these schools just so they have like a leg up when it comes to university, life, that sort of thing, you know. It's just really great to know English. And so one of the biggest questions is, when should I start looking, or when should I start applying? So I personally think that you should be applying 6 months ahead, maybe even 8 months ahead of the semester that you want to be teaching in. Now, so hagwons, the school year, and I think just in general Korean education, the school year actually starts in March, and then the second semester starts in September. And so obviously I'm here in September. I started teaching in the second semester. So my advice, based on my personal experience, is to look for jobs that start in March, just because I had a really hard time kind of adjusting, and the kids also had a hard time adjusting to like the teacher switching in the middle of the school year. So I didn't really know how they were at the beginning as students, and I don't know their full progress from the beginning of the year until now. So I'm kind of starting to be their teacher when they're already knowledgeable about a lot of things, and it's more of just like practice and maybe learning a little bit more. But I didn't start teaching kids who are kind of like freshly in school. The thing is though, you can start applying for jobs. If you want to start in March, I would start looking in September, and then maybe even in July. And then if you want to start in September, which I did, I actually started applying for jobs in December. And the reason why is because the last 3 months is going to be a lot of difficulty in terms of visa processing and immigration and all that stuff. So you want to leave a lot of time for you to look for these jobs. And the March and September start dates are also the same for the EPIC program. So when you do end up getting hired, you usually will come about a week to 10 days prior. However, you can apply at any time, because sometimes like teachers like have to leave an emergency and they have to break their contract, or sometimes people will only extend for like 4 months over their 1-year contract. So it is normal for you to start at like random times. However, I would recommend that you don't do that, just because sometimes you don't really know why you're starting in the middle of the year. That's not the beginning of the year and not the second semester, because sometimes it kind of goes to show that like maybe a teacher was running away from their contract and they broke their contract. I will admit, some of the job postings on Dave's ESL Cafe are pretty sketchy. They'll have words like best positions in Korea, or like teach at a beautiful spring cherry blossom area, like you can expect those things, so try to stay away from those ones. Another thing that I forgot to mention in the other videos is, do you need to have education in education? The answer is no, but you do have to have a degree. So I have a degree in professional communications. I do have a diploma in radio and television broadcasting, but my degree is professional communications. And people were asking too, like, when it comes to teaching in another country, does it only have to be like a degree in education or a degree in communications? No. Honestly, I know people who have a degree in accounting. I have a friend who has a degree in sciences, and so you do not need to have an education degree to come to teach English in Korea, and also in other countries like in Japan, and I'm pretty sure in China. But you do need to have a degree of any sort. Oh, somebody was asking about the TEFL program. So the TEFL program, it's technically not mandatory, but I really think that you should take it because it definitely puts you a leg up from people who either do not have teaching experience or who do have teaching experience but doesn't have the TEFL. Like I said before, it's basically a crash course in teaching, but there's some very valuable information. Like I said, that's my laundry. Okay, I will take that out in a moment because I'm almost done. So like I said, I did the TEFL program online, but there are actually universities and schools, they don't even have to be universities, it could just be even programs that are available kind of like at home for you, because there definitely was at some of the colleges back home and private colleges as well. And it's actually better to have that done, like the TEFL program, in person, in my opinion, because it kind of gives you practice in the classroom. Because obviously with me doing my TEFL during COVID, I couldn't do the classroom portion, and I definitely think that would have helped to have a little bit more practice with teaching in a classroom and teaching young kids. Consider taking the TEFL in person, but it's also okay to only do it online. However, there are specific cities in Korea, you'll have to do your research, that you can only teach there if you have 1 year of experience teaching in a classroom in Korea. So it doesn't matter, let's say you taught in Dubai for a little bit or you taught in Spain for a little bit, even though you have that experience of teaching abroad, you cannot teach in specific cities if you have not taught in the classroom in Korea first. 1 year experience. Another thing about the TEFL is I did the 120-hour TEFL certificate. There's some places that would require more and some schools that would require less. Now, do I speak Korean? A little bit. So I know enough Korean to get by. My comprehension is still a little bit rusty just because Koreans do talk fairly fast, just like how people of any languages, if they are native speakers or that's the only language they've been speaking for a long time, they speak very fast, right? So sometimes it takes me a while to understand what somebody is saying to me, but I usually kind of understand, especially if it's honestly just like going to the store, going to a restaurant, kind of like everyday interactions. There are some times where it's really difficult, but yes, I know enough Korean to get by. I personally think that you should learn Korean before coming, or at least know some. So honestly, Duolingo I used. I also just went on YouTube. I searched YouTube tutorials or like videos of like basic Korean that you should know. And also when I was here for my semester abroad, I did take a survival English course with my university, so that was very, very helpful. So do I know Korean? Kind of. And I do think I want to take a class to learn a little bit more, because it would make my life so much easier, and it just kind of makes sense, you know, why wouldn't I want to learn the language of the country that I'm living in? So what age do I teach? Because Korea doesn't really have kindergarten, the ages that I teach, they actually range. So personally, I teach 7-year-olds, but in the entire school that I am at, there are kids that range in the ages of 4 to 9. And just to let you know as well, Koreans have different ages. So they have an international age, which is like an age that everybody kind of is familiar with, starting from your birthday. But then they also have a Korean age, and their Korean age is a whole thing that's related to the Chinese Lunar New Year, and also moment of conception, that sort of thing. So when you ask somebody their age in Korea, their Korean age is older than their actual age. So for example, if they say 4-year-olds, sometimes you could be dealing with 3-year-olds, but in terms of international age, my kids are around 6 and 7. Some of them are obviously having birthdays. And then my afternoon kids are a little bit older, because my afternoon consists of teaching kids who come after elementary school. So it's like an after school program from 3 to 4:30 or from 4:30 to 6. Yeah, be prepared to teach any ages between 3 to like 9, I would say. You can ask how many students you have in a classroom, because for example, I have 9. The most I have in a classroom is 10 kids. And I have a friend who literally has like 30 little kindergarten Korean kids. Like, it's a little bit hard to manage sometimes, but she really likes it because it's less book heavy. It's more like teaching them a lesson and then giving them an activity so it practices what they just learned, which I personally prefer. My school is definitely book heavy, but I'm trying to make do, and I think I'm doing okay so far. Of course, I'm making lots of mistakes, but that's okay. Most of you guys were asking too, like, what level do my Korean kids have? All of my Korean students are quite fluent in English. There's just, you know, some grammatical things. They might not know some vocabulary, but I can have a full-on conversation with these kids. They are so smart. I love them. I love them so much. I got a really good bunch of kids, such caring little ones. And also, same with the other kids in the school. Even the younger kids who are aged like 4, they're pretty good at English as well. And for me personally, my school is like, you're fully integrated in speaking English the entire time. So it's kind of like a no speaking Korean vibe in the school. Even when you're just getting the kids off of the bus and into the school, we highly encourage them to speak English the entire time, even at lunchtime, even in the play times, even during gym time, and art and science. It's all English. All of the Korean co-teachers speak English because they are also teaching in English, but it's just easier for them to teach specific subjects with them speaking Korean and just giving them translations. Before I talk about all of the things I was looking for in job descriptions, I just want to say that this is my personal preferences, and also this is my personal experiences. Like I said many times in episode 1 and in episode 2, every situation can be different, and so these are the basic things that you should look for. I already talked about some of them in episode 2 because it should technically be part of your contract, but when you're looking for a basic job, it should tell you that your flight and your rent are paid for. And so, for example, for me personally, I had to pay for my own flight, but then I'm going to be reimbursed in my first paycheck. The school also should be looking for the flight for you. You shouldn't be searching for your own flights. They should look for it and send you the link, and then you just book it, and or they will book it for you. Somebody was asking if you should be getting a return ticket, but most places will only pay for your ticket, like one-way airfare ticket. There are some places which are really good that will pay for both, but personally mine was only one-way ticket. And of course, with that, your housing should be provided. It should usually be a single furnished apartment, kind of like a studio apartment. Oh, one thing that I will let you know is if you go with the EPIC program, or if you choose to teach in the boonies, which is the countryside, the rural side, your housing will be bigger than people who live in the city. So my apartment is like pretty basic. It's actually one of the smallest ones. Oh, a lot of people were really concerned about taxes, because I definitely was. Taxes should be done and helped. Like, your school should help you do that. They should be doing it for you, technically. Do expect for a housing deposit to be taken out of your paycheck. That's just basic. I mean, it kind of makes sense if you're renting a place. There's like a housing deposit. So because the school is paying a lot for you to stay in the housing and they pay for your rent every month. So I kind of was okay giving that deposit, and I heard that you do get it back. You will get it back, but I'm not sure. Usually it should be a 1-year contract and possibility to extend. Let's talk about money. Regardless of your experience, you should not apply for a job that's less than 2.2 million won a month. And that is pretty good considering that you're not going to be paying rent. The only thing, I think I've mentioned this, is you do have to pay your utilities. If any of the job postings go for over 2.5 to 2.6 million, that's kind of a red flag. It usually doesn't happen because even teachers with experience don't even get that much. So yeah, if anything is over 2.5 or 2.6 starting, that's kind of sketchy. In relation to experience, do I personally have experience? Yes, I do have experience kind of teaching. Honestly, with hogwans and teaching English in foreign countries and also in the EPIC program, they take any type of experience, going even as far back as high school. So when I was in high school, I didn't do formal tutoring. So in high school, I was like really involved. If any of my classmates needed help, I would definitely help them. In the classroom, my teachers, for example, if I, let's just say, got a math concept more, my teacher would be like, hey Shan, can you go teach, or can you talk to like the group of 5 people around you and kind of teach them? So I do have that experience. Also, they do take babysitting and kind of informal experience of working with children, but some schools may be really particular with that. And then also, when I was here for my semester back in 2019, I actually did a volunteer library program where I did teach kids English, and I taught them about Canada, and we read books. And so I have about 6 months of experience teaching kids weekly. So if you have experience, please make sure that you are going to be getting paid over 2.4. That is my suggestion. What should the hours look like? It's an 8-hour workday. Sometimes it could be 9, but the less the better. So for example, my day is I work from 10 to 6, but they do ask that I come a little bit early so that, you know, I'm there before my kids. And even if my start time was only 10 o'clock, I think I would come early anyways. And then afterwards, they do give us a prep time. So if you want to prep for any of your classes during that week, or just even for the next day, I do have that opportunity to prep for half an hour after my shift. So technically I work 9:30 to 6:30, which is not that bad. Honestly, working 9 hours is pretty standard for your first time teaching abroad, especially if you don't have that much of experience in the classroom. So I mean, if you don't have experience, be prepared to work a little bit longer hours and for your workday to be really stressful and busy. But if you do have experience, it's a little bit easier just because you're more familiar of how to manage your lesson plans and stuff like that. So try your best to get 8 hours or less. But if it is 9 hours, that is a possibility and it's quite normal. You should also just be teaching English. There are schools where they will include science or art class, which is fine because it's mostly just like fun activities for the kids. Or some of the schools will be play-based, but you should technically only be teaching them a full-on curriculum that is revolved around English. And then same with sciences, like I said, it's usually just activities. You're not actually teaching them information about science. It should tell you if you get a lunch break. You should be getting an hour lunch break. Some of them will pay you during that time and some of them will not. If you're really curious, you can ask the school. And also if you're really curious, you can ask them what they pay you an hour. But the typical, again, like I said, is between 2.2 to 2.6 the most. But the higher wages is because you have more experience. At my school also, the lunch is provided. It is about $3 a meal and it's actually not bad. However, I'm just personally used to bringing my own lunch, so I think I'm gonna eventually get to that. I'm just still settling, and having the lunch provided is a lot more convenient for me at the moment. For those of you who don't know, go and check out Korean school lunches. They're lit, they're not bad. And then it's just It varies from school to school, but mine is $60 a month, and it just comes out of my paycheck if I want to opt in. You should not ever work overtime, you guys. They will not pay you. If they do, you have to be paid more, but it's kind of hard because all of those promises are probably just going to be verbal and it's not written, and it's not part of your contract. So just beware of schools that want you to work overtime. There are some times where you will have to work weekends, but that's because you're only allowed to work a certain amount of days or hours in a month, and if you go over that, that means you have an extra day off. But sometimes the schools will make up for that in upcoming months. For example, if you work a Saturday in October, it could be made up that you get a day off in February, just randomly, and it could honestly be at any day of the week. So I would just probably communicate a lot with your school or your recruiter about that. Make sure it doesn't happen, or ask about it. There is possibilities for schools to have their hours that are really unconventional. Usually some of them can honestly range from like 3 p.m. to like 9, or like 3 p.m. to 11, just because those are probably schools that offer the after school programs, and that can be for any age of elementary. But I personally wanted to teach the normal kindergarten, grade 1 type of ages. On the job posting, it should also say if you get severance pay and pension, which you should, and you should also get medical insurance as well. Your health insurance and your pension should be 50%. There's some schools that will let you find your own accommodation if you'd like, but the thing is you have to pay for it yourself. They do provide housing support for that, but it's kind of stressful if you don't know Korean to find your own apartment. But if you feel like you can do it, then by all means go for it. There are teachers at my school that went with housing that was not provided by the school or found by the school. And then I mentioned this in the other one, you should be getting 2 vacations, one in the winter and one in the summer. It should be ranging between 10 to 14 days. It's typical to have 10, so 5 in the winter and then 5 in the summer, and that's just working days. So technically, if you're counting the weekends, then you should be having about a 9 to 10 day vacation in both summer and in winter. You should get all your weekends and holidays, like national holidays, like red days, off as well. Again, visa should be sponsored and paid for by the employer. It is common for them to ask you for a criminal record check, and I personally would recommend to get the criminal record check done before you look for jobs. So for example, since I wanted to go in the August-September, I actually started applying for jobs in January, and then I applied for my criminal record at that time as well, because I was hoping to be hired at least by June or July. And the criminal record check only lasts 6 months in Canada. I don't know if it's the same for anywhere around the world. You don't need it to be valid for like you to come to Korea. You just need it to be valid to when you apply for your visa. So I applied for my visa in July. If you are really concerned about what recruiting company you should go with because of my experience, so I'll talk a little bit about that. So many people were wondering why I said that I applied for over 50 jobs. So when I was looking for a position, honestly, I just applied for any job that had Seoul and that had 2.2 million won. But the reason why I applied for so many jobs at once is because half of those jobs are not going to reply to you, and some of them are going to be sketchy. So besides me having a really good experience with Apple Tree Education, there is 2 recruiting companies that I know that are very reputable, because it's actually the recruiting companies that you can use to help you with Epic. So those 2 recruiting companies are Korvia and K Horizon. I'm pretty sure that's what, let me see. Yeah, I wrote it down. So if you want to go for that, by all means, I heard it's very reputable. There were some recruiting companies that also didn't respond to me at all. There were some recruiting companies that were very aggressive at the beginning, like asking me for all of this information, and then once I gave it to them, they didn't reply. So that's what I mean by apply for as many jobs as you can and try to just kind of like be at the point where you can pick and choose. And you can pick from the best. For example, there was a recruiting company that I went with, and it was like really sketchy. When I did a Skype interview with them, they said that their camera wasn't working, and so it was only audios, and I thought it was really weird that he was interviewing me and he was just looking at me but I couldn't see him. And then it was really loud in the background. And then there was another one, oh my gosh, you guys, there was another one where the girl, same thing, she said that her camera was broken, and then it literally sounded like she was at the club. Like, it didn't sound like, okay, you know, like, fine, if you're if you're interviewing me and like maybe kids are getting ready for the bus and it's kind of loud in the background. No, it didn't sound like kids in the background. It legit sounded like she was at the club. There was music playing, there was people talking. Like, I'm pretty sure I heard glasses, like drink glasses clinking and stuff. And it was really weird because it was like 5 o'clock their time, like PM, and I don't even know what time it was back home. But yeah, so when you do the interviews as well, you're going to be doing the interviews on Korean time. So keep that in mind, because I totally forgot. And there's one time I got ready for an interview at 5 PM and I was like, wait, it's 5 PM their time, not my time. So the interviews will be really late at night for you. So just keep that in mind, especially if you live somewhere where you have to be quiet, or if you live somewhere where it's too loud during the day. It is a possibility that they want to interview you when it's daytime for you. And then there was another one where she was interviewing me, and it was fine. Like, I could see her and she could see me, but then after I would answer a question, she would just look at me and be like, and then she would write it. Like, it was like it wasn't the normal lag from Skype, you know, when you do video chats and sometimes it lags. No, it was like weird. Like, she was like staring at me. So that's what I mean by you have to feel out the vibe of a recruiting company or a recruiter. And there were some job postings where I applied directly to the school, because it was the school that had the job postings, and there were some things that they were just very, very firm about. And yes, I applied for all of these schools at the same time. Like, I'm pretty sure, like I said, I applied for over 50 schools, but I applied for over 50 schools not in one day, like probably within a month, and it was like applying for 3 jobs every day or something like that. So yes, it is okay to apply for multiple jobs from like the school postings themselves, and it's also okay to apply to multiple recruiting companies at once, because like I said, in the end you want to be able to pick and choose. And sometimes the recruiting companies are not even going to listen to any of your requests and your preferences, and they're just going to give you schools that suck. To become kind of like an applicant with AppleTree, you actually have to go on their website and you have to fill out their application form on there. And basically it's just the same things. Although that you're going to be applying for a job from their job posting on Dave's ESL Cafe, they kind of want to get to know you a little bit better on paper, and kind of like weed out some things and get some information from you from the application form. But then that's why they also have an interview to kind of meet you and just confirm some specific things about your application. And so it's the same sort of things. It asks like, what age do I want to teach? Where do I want to be? What is the minimum payment I want to have? Do I want to look for my own housing? Or do I want to have the school provide it? And oh, another one too is there is a possibility for you to move with dependents. So for example, there are people who come to teach abroad and they actually bring their entire family, or there's people who are married and they bring their spouse with them. And so that one is a little bit more difficult because the school might not be able to find you accommodation that would include your spouse or your family. So that's something that you would just talk to with your recruiter. After I had all the preferences and I talked to the recruiting company, you guys kind of already know that from episode number 2, there were some questions about the interview process. So in the interview process, besides the one that I had with AppleTree Recruiting at first, I had interviews with 2 different schools. They kind of just talked about the curriculum, and it was more of like them telling me what their school has to offer and what the everyday schedule looks like for a teacher. They talk about the curriculum, and that is something that you should also make sure to ask in the interview and make sure it's in the contract, is that the curriculum is already done. It's okay for you to be able to do your own lesson plans based on the curriculum, but you should not be making the curriculum yourself. They talked about how many kids, they talked about the age of the kids, they told me what to expect. So for example, on one of the schools that I didn't end up going with, They told me that there's a possibility that I could be teaching kids that are Korean age 4, but they are 3 years old international age, and that, you know, these are kids who like don't know how to use the bathroom. Like some of them aren't fully potty trained, and like I would have to wipe their butts, and like that's just a normal thing. If you're a teacher, it's not something like, oh my gosh, you should be used to that already. There is a possibility that even I could do it, and my kids are 6 to 7 years old. They also ask personal questions, you know, like how do you relieve stress? What do you do in your free time? Do you have any hobbies? They also ask you why you want to come to Korea. What do you want to do here? So for example, they did know that I have a YouTube, and they honestly were genuinely curious, and I was not offended at all. They said, are you just here just because you want to make content for your YouTube, or do you actually care about kids? And the truth is, it's a little bit of both, but I've always wanted to be a teacher before I even started YouTube. So there's that. And then I want you to also remember that you can ask questions in the interview. So one of the major things that I asked was like, how many books and how many subjects do I teach in a day? I did know that I was gonna have a little bit more of a heavier workload at my school, but it was really good to just know that. I also asked to see the accommodation, pictures and address. I asked if I could talk to current teachers, and make sure you do this. And I wish I did this a little bit more, because I think I honestly only asked a couple questions to the foreign teachers. And some of the things I think that you should ask is like, are you really stressed in the job? Do you feel like the work environment is a good place where if something is going wrong in the curriculum or with the kids and lesson planning, that you would get support from them? I would definitely ask is there technology in the classroom, because that one is such a hard thing, because there's some schools and there's some classrooms, even in my own school, that doesn't have like a projector on the board, or it doesn't have a TV, and so sometimes it definitely will affect your lesson planning. Another thing that was really important for me to ask was, do you have enough outside life time? Because as much as, yes, you're a teacher, and as much as teachers work very hard and we work every day, we work even after class, you know, many teachers will say that they take their marking home, they look for videos or things online while they're at home to figure out how they can help their students. They try to research, you know, how to deal with problematic kids, or like how to deal with kids who are too smart and are advancing a lot more than their classmates. So teaching never really goes away. It doesn't just end in the classroom. So I think it's important to ask if you feel like after work that you don't have to do too much, or if you feel like you have enough time in the weekend to do life things and not just use the weekend to do work things. I think that's very important to ask, because they're experiencing it, right? And you know, some of them, I don't know if the Korean co-teachers will look at the emails that they're sending back and forth to you, but I was given personal emails, so I really appreciated that, and I feel like I should have taken advantage of that resource a little bit more. Another thing somebody actually asked me was about health. I will talk about this in the next videos as well, because I will be talking about like the physical process of me coming to Korea and like what I had to do before I started teaching. So there is, and not really like a drug test. They kind of just ask you with your self-medical test, and they do straight up ask you if you do drugs or you drink alcohol. And you have to be very honest, because you do have to do a medical check when you come to Korea. And also there's times where you might have to do a blood test before you come here and or after. So yes, I know especially marijuana is, you know, it's legal in Canada. That's like not a thing here in Korea or in Asia. It's like really, really bad. That's a little just random thought that I had. But to kind of sum it all up, most of the things that I looked for in the job postings were pretty similar to what you should expect in a contract. And they're just the basic, like I said, the basis is just the things that I talked about: wage, hours, holidays, severance, housing, flight, visa, health insurance. And like I said, before you also accept a job, but also even just when you're looking in itself on Dave's ESL Cafe, I would very highly recommend and advise you to go on the green list and the black list. So the green list is a list of good schools that people in Korea have had good experiences with, and then the black list is the schools that people did not have good experiences at. Look for those schools to see if the ones that you applied for are on those lists. Also, for some of the job postings as well, there is specific schools that will only allow people from specific countries because it is considered native English is the first language spoken. It's just countries where English is the #1 language. So I'm just looking on my phone quickly. So some job posting will specifically ask you to be from the US, Canada, UK, Ireland, New Zealand, South Africa, or Australia. But don't be discouraged if you're not from those countries. When you apply, you can definitely ask if they can find you positions where it's okay that you're not from those countries. I think I talked about all the things that were cut out in my episode number 2. But if you have any more questions regarding what you should be looking for in job postings, if you have any questions regarding the kind of process of just finding a job at a hagwon in Korea, or if you have any questions regarding the interview process, please let me know. But like I said, honestly, it's kind of just like a basic interview. I wouldn't be too nervous about it, but you can go ahead and watch other YouTube videos about the specific interview process of a hagwon or the EPIC program. I hope this helped you, especially for my Canadians out there. Shout out to my Canadians, love you guys. Oh, Canada. But yeah, see you guys in the next episode with more information. I will try to make the videos come out as soon as possible, but I am getting busier with school because we are doing report cards very soon.